After week 1, you made fun of the guy who blew all of his fab on Puka Nacua. Now you're wondering, did he pay enough? There's only one question left to answer. Cooper Kupp who? Welcome to Monday's Hangxiety. I am your host, Ryan Weisse. This is the weekly recap show from Club Fantasy. We are here to break down all of the action from week 2 and let you know whether it is time to panic or chill the fuck out. With me, as always, Joshua Hudson. Josh, how are you on this wonderful Monday morning?
I got to just kind of coast through the games on Sunday because my birds played on Thursday. So, Okay.
Absolutely good. No stress for Josh on Sunday. And Josh, 2 weeks in a row, you're not tired, you're not hungover. Man, maybe I need to start drinking and flip the
new me.
Last week, Joe Zolo was with us, and I teased a new guest. I wasn't sure he was going to be able to do the whole show. Looks like he can. Our buddy, motherfucking dice dealer, Mark Fritter. Mark, welcome to Monday's Hangxiety. How are you doing, buddy?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me again this week. I've been dipping in every now and then with the mock draft shows in the offseason. Season's on. Let's have some fun.
That's what I was going to say is we had you on the mock draft shows. I did you a disservice on your first ever show and made you do redraft when you're a dynasty-focused person. So we got to let you come on, redeem yourself. And with this show, I think you're going to bring a nice little dynasty edge to the show because Josh and I don't give a shit about dynasty. We talk redraft.
Hey. Just because you like to invest in a bunch of older players and, forfeit all of your draft picks doesn't mean that I don't like Dynasty, okay?
I love Dynasty, and I love winning championships year 1, year 2, year 3, and then I don't know what I'm going to do after that. You've seen it happening in the Ballers vs. Friends Dynasty where I'm just stuck in the middle looking absolutely atrocious right now. So that happens. But, Mark, welcome to the show, buddy. We're so glad to have you. If you're new to the show, we are going to recap the action, and Josh is going to wax poetic about his Philadelphia Eagles. But the first thing we get started with is just a quick rundown of the scores so far for week 2 in the NFL. Eagles beat the Vikings 34-28, not as close as it looked. 34-28 on Thursday night. Ravens beat the Bengals, kind of crazy, 27-24 in Cincinnati. Seahawks go into Detroit and get the upset. Wonderful game, though, 37-31. Colts outlast the Texans 31-20. Tampa Bay beats Chicago 27-17. Mark is a Bears fan, so I'm sure we'll talk more about that one. Chiefs pull one out of their ass 17-9 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Atlanta just barely squeaks by 25-24 on the leg of Young Wei Koo. Buffalo Bills 38, Las Vegas Raiders 10. The Titans blew every parlay I had, 27-24 over the Los Angeles Chargers. 49ers 30, Los Angeles Rams 23. Giants come back from, I think it was 28-7 in the third quarter was at one point. They win the game 31-28. Cowboys beat the Jets, no surprise, 30-10. Commanders outlast a Hail Mary 35-33 over the Denver Broncos.
Awful no call on that 2-point conversion, by the way. I am so tired of these officials missing these blatant PI calls. This is so bad.
There's another no call we're going to talk about here in a little bit as well on an OPI. And then the Miami Dolphins pull it out against the Patriots. Patriots offense still just sputtering, but defense was able to slow Miami down 24-17 in that game. Mark, before we let Josh talk about his Eagles from Thursday, did any of those games stick out at you? Anything you want to talk about?
Nothing springs to mind. I didn't get a chance to watch too close in the Bears game. Being in Vegas, I was stuck with the Raiders and the Niners games.
Well, we're going to talk about the Raiders because I have some questions about the Raiders. So maybe there's some questions you can answer a little bit later in the show. Josh, we're going to go ahead and let you talk about the Birds, and then we'll get Gabe up on the screen so he can get a little his public venting out. So the first segment of the show is Up with the Birds, except I forgot the injury section, as always. If you can't tell, I'm in mid-season form on fucking up intros at this point. So let's talk injuries and then the Birds. So Anthony Richardson left the game with a concussion. Gardner Minshew into the game. That makes me smile. Didn't quite work out as well as you would like, but Richardson.
Hey, they got the win. That's what matters.
They got the win.
And Richardson still had 2 rushing touchdowns, so he salvaged.
Just gonna say, and Richardson still had the better fantasy game. So, and then to add to my heartbreak, David Montgomery with a thigh bruise after scoring his first touchdown of the game. At least he got that touchdown in. Looks like Josh is saying a quad injury now. So might miss a couple of weeks. Saquon Barkley looked way scarier than it looks like it's going to be. They're calling it a high ankle sprain. Because of them having a Thursday game, he is likely to miss 1 week. He should be back in week 3. He is having an MRI today.
I was about to say they're doing the MRI today. That'll, once the swelling and all that stuff goes down. But the hope is that it's just a traditional ankle sprain. But because of the short turnaround, week 3 is likely going to be unlikely.
Sounds like it makes a lot of sense. Joe Burrow, who did not look great again this week, has also tweaked that calf injury, and that could end up being a problem for a Bengals team that is still struggling to protect him. Odell Beckham, a lot of targets in the first quarter, ends up leaving the game with an ankle injury. Brandon Aiyuk was a shoulder injury. He did come back into the game. He was in and out. I just don't think he got as much play. That's going to come up later. Salvon Ahmed left the game with a groin injury. Devontae Adams evaluated for a concussion. Darnell Mooney taken out with a knee injury, and he was leading the team in targets, I believe, again at that point. And then Kareem Jackson for the second week in a row, dirty ass hit, this time on Logan Thomas. This one way worse. Logan Thomas leaves the game with a concussion, and I think Kareem Jackson's going to be looking at a game or two after doing this consecutive weeks. I don't think they're going to allow that much longer. Josh, let's do it for real this time. Thursday night, your Birds played the Vikings. They handled business. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I'm going to try to keep this a little shorter than last week, but dude, this game was ugly. Like, it was bad. The Vikings offense is just terrible outside of Justin Jefferson. Like, they cannot move the football really at all. One of my calls on our Wednesday show was Jordan Addison over, I think it was like 39.5.
Yeah,
one touchdown catch. Yeah, one touchdown catch put him right over the top. So, and this is exactly what I said. Our secondary is garbage. We have no help on the back end at safety. Reed Blankenship being out, and of course, opposite Darius Slade, James Bradbury out. We're working in younger kids like Josh Jobe. Eli Ricks is on the roster as well. Avonte Maddox, our starting slot corner, towards pectoral muscle. Like I said this all off season, the Eagles were one of the luckiest teams in terms of injuries last year. That has reared its ugly head very quickly, and we're only 2 games into this season. So buckle up, because this season is not going to be easy. Luckily, we're started 2-0, so that's a good thing. But the offense has not looked great. The passing offense with Jalen Hurts has looked very uneven. Devonta Smith is still fantastic. I mean, 4 catches, 132 yards, beautiful touchdown. AJ Brown should have had a touchdown. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But hats off to DeAndre Swift. Like, homeboy balled out.
Yeah.
Only the second time in his career that he has topped 20 carries, and did it in fashion in his home debut for the Eagles, where he went to high school and where he grew up in Philadelphia. So hats off to him. But the biggest thing I'm looking for is we've got a long week. So as of right now, it'll be 7 days until we play again, because we got Monday night against the Bucs in week 3, which that game isn't as looking as easy as it was 2 months ago, 3 months ago, because the Bucs are now 2-0. The fuck's all that shit coming? And again, where do we have the problems in the secondary? Mike Evans is fucking balling right now. So I'm just waiting for Joe to tell me, Darius Slay will shut down Mike Evans. Couldn't shut down freaking Justin Jefferson. Let's be honest here. This is not going to happen. Mike Evans is probably going to have another big day. So the only thing I can take solace in is that their offensive line sucks. The Bucs, that is. And our defensive line is awesome. Jalen Carter is that fucking dude. Through 2 games, 11 pressures. Yeah, our defensive line, the edges need to get work. Like, Hassan Reddick has been very quiet. Josh Sweat has made some noise, but he hasn't finished the plays. I need these guys to start finishing, because the interior is doing their job. It's the exterior there's not.
No, I love it. The whole point of this show is venting. It's what we started this show for. So, Gabe, welcome to the spirit of the show. Started Dameon Pierce, which I would have over this exact group. I imagine this is Brian Robinson. You're not benching Bijan Robinson. So Brian Robinson,
I was about to say, I was a little concerned when I saw Robinson.
Brian Robinson, who we'll talk about later. Rachaad White, widely hated by the show. And Raheem Mostert, who we'll talk about later, all got 20 plus on his bench. Mark, he's down 15 points with Elijah Moore are going tonight, with Amari Cooper likely out. Should he feel good about this matchup? And I'm gathering He's a Browns fan.
Yes.
I know.
Well, I'm generally in Elijah Moore. I don't think he's going to pull off 15 this week, even in PPR.
Interesting. Yeah. The Steelers,
Here's the fun thing. Steelers on Monday night at home, 20-1 in their last 20 gun games.
Good Lord. Where did you find that? Really?
ESPN, baby. Yep.
That's nuts because we're going to talk about Browns are favorites in this game, road favorites. I don't know what the weather's supposed to look like in this game, but I know in the Northeast right now, it's not the greatest weather. So it could be a very interesting, low scoring game, lending to what Mark said. Unlikely to pull 15 with Eli Moore, but I'll be rooting for you. I covered the Browns for Football Guys in the preseason, and man, Eli Moore lit camp on fire. Seeing him out there without Amari Cooper could lead to a big day, and they're not afraid to run him, which could also be very, very interesting and could add to some points. I'll be interested to see how that one plays out.
Mostly just heat tonight in terms of weather.
Okay.
And that's kind of what I'm seeing. So
I said we're getting rain in New York right now, but I'm still, 5 hours east of where they'll be playing the game, so that has nothing.
Did we ever get an explanation on why we're getting double headers midseason? I thought this was a week one thing.
And they're overlapping, which is so dumb.
Yep. And it's the next 2
it used
weeks.
to be like 7 and then 10. Like now it's 7 and 8, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, very, very strange. And it's the next 2 weeks. So
the NFL.
I think there's one more later on in the season too. Aside
is there
from
really?
Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Yes.
No explanation except that the NFL wants to drive people mad. Later on, this show always ends up starting at some point in the season with why are there 3-4 o'clock games? It really ruins my red zone experience when you could have just spread those games out.
I want an octo box. I don't want a tri box, okay?
Exactly.
Or triangle or whatever. Like
our first category is probably everyone's favorite category. It is the shot of espresso, the quality performance that got the juices flowing. Josh singing directly to my heart with Puka Nacua. Friend.
Look, 2 weeks in a row, Puka Nacua is leading the NFL in targets. And this is a rookie that really wasn't on most people's radar outside of like dynasty people because, again, he was a 5th-round pick, didn't have the greatest athletic profile coming into the league. We all knew that, let me rephrase this. We all felt that the Rams were going to suck. Yep. All of the health issues with Matt Stafford, this team getting so much younger this year, eating so much dead cap space. He is leading the NFL in targets by 10 targets.
Yeah.
He has 10 more targets through 2 games than Justin Jefferson right now. Like, who had that on their 2023 NFL season bingo card? Like, what? Another 15 catches for 147 yards. And this is a good defense. Like, we've talked about San Francisco that their secondary can be had, and there was a lot of playing catch up in this game. So the final stat line, I guess, isn't as crazy to me because I knew that they'd be throwing the football. But this dude saw 20 targets. 20. What? Like, this is bonkers. He's the wide receiver 2 on the week. He's like, I think, wide receiver 3 or 4 on the season through 2 weeks.
I think it's 2 in standard PPR score, and I was just looking.
There you go.
Just behind Tyreek Hill.
And I don't think, does he even have a touchdown this year? I don't think he has a touchdown this year. He's doing this literally on yards and receptions.
Yeah, get used to that with the Rams.
Like, this is absolutely phenomenal, and I'm loving all of this. Like, the interesting part to me is going to be when Cooper Kupp comes back.
Yes.
How does this continue, if it continues, and what is Puka Nacua going to look like? Like, we have seen Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods coexist in this offense, right? Like, they've both gone through, had 130 plus targets in a season. They've been utilized very well together. We just haven't seen it much because the Rams with Cooper Kupp over the last couple of years have not had a quality wide receiver 2. So it's been all Cooper Kupp or bust. But let's not also sleep on Tutu Atwell, who's actually performed pretty well too. They now have 3 pretty solid wide receivers once Cooper Kupp comes back. This offense is going to be very interesting, which is why I'm very down on somebody else, which I know we'll get to a little bit later.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk a lot about that. So
I figured Tutu was more of a kick returner guy. That's why I haven't been too high on him until this point. But, okay, he's showing me something I didn't expect.
And everyone who knows any show I've done, I'm a heightist, so I have to hate Tutu Atwell. Like,
but that's the thing. Tutu's more skinny than.
Yeah, that's true. He's still like what 5'11", something like that.
Yeah,
he just feels like a super little guy. First, I want to get Gemmo up on the screen. He said people were being mean on the X app last week. We are definitely a very pro Puka show. I've been talking about, but Mark, I have a question for you in Dynasty because I might have traded him away in Dynasty already. And did I get fleeced? What would you call Puka Nacua's Dynasty value right now? A guy who I was able to get in the last round of almost every Dynasty rookie draft I was in. And boy, did I cash in on that.
I did some sniffing around in my leagues, and people are asking for a second. I feel a third's probably more fair.
Got a second for him, baby.
I got offered a second and a third for Puka and a fourth, and I declined it.
Okay.
The only reason, one of the biggest reasons why I declined it was because I also have Cooper Kupp in that league. So I figure that I can utilize Puka's, emergence right now. Then Cooper Kupp comes back, and if Puka still has value post Kupp's return, then he's going to be worth more than a second and a third at that point anyway.
I was going to say,
if I decline it, well, guess what? He's going to help me win 4 weeks. So
I was going to say, if he keeps this up, he's going to be worth more than the second in 2 more weeks anyway. So.
Or you could look at moving on from Cooper Kupp, since he was an old rookie, so he's a little bit old considering his
I think he's 30 already.
Yeah.
I think he's 30 already. But that was the thing. I traded 2 seconds to get Kupp this year because I'm going for that push, and of course it hasn't helped me much so far. But.
I was gonna say even that feels like a win. 2 seconds for Kupp.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I like it. Josh, go ahead and keep going because you have another under the radar wide receiver that people probably felt gross when they drafted, but they're not feeling gross right now.
Yeah, and this is a guy that I don't want to say I was out on, but I really did not know how to look at this Houston Texans offense. But Nico Collins is that dude. Like we've talked about him really for going on 3 years now. Like he has a legit shot to be a quality wide receiver in the NFL. Get some run here with the Texans. Little rocky the first couple of years because of injuries and such, but this year you bring in Robert Woods, you draft Tank Dell, again another guy on the smaller side. Nico Collins is that bigger, sort of more prototypical X-sized wide receiver. Right now, he's the first read in this offense. Led the team in targets and production in week 1. Second in targets this week. Led them in production. 9 targets, 7 catches, 146 yards, a touchdown, 27.6 fantasy points. Like, the biggest shocker to me really hasn't so much been the production that Nico has been getting. It's been CJ Stroud has thrown the football 91 times through 2 games. And more to the point, he's been sacked an additional 11 times. They've had 102 dropbacks. 102 dropbacks for a rookie quarterback through 2 weeks. Like, I understand this team is not great on offense, but the biggest thing for me, and again, this is another subject that we'll talk about a little bit later, they made a lot of investments in the offensive line. They have currently 1 starter going because 4 of them are hurt. That is not good. And it's affected the running game, which is forced CJ Stroud to throw the football. The difference from week 1 to week 2, Stroud has actually been good. But I want to point this out really quick before I finish up on my next 2 guys here. I had a question come in to me on Sunday morning. In a standard league, would you start Terry McLaurin, JSN, or Nico Collins? I literally said, I know it sounds crazy, but give me Nico Collins.
Yeah.
Feel good about that one. Pat myself on the back for that one. So.
The target volume's been nuts. Now, before you move on, Josh, I want to throw another question at Mark here. I made a connection with Nico Collins earlier this preseason for dynasty managers because there's another guy who dynasty managers I think were giving more credit than Nico Collins, but to me they were the same person. And my real question here is, we've seen the emergence of Nico Collins. Could we see Terrace Marshall ever step out from the shadow he's in? Because to me, their first 2 years in the league, Terrace Marshall and Nico Collins were the same person. I don't think it's going to happen in Carolina, but could we see a Terrace Marshall emergence still this late in his career?
I don't really see it. That's not even really a name that's been on my radar lately. I mean, I remember him from the drafts, but he's certainly fallen off. And getting back to Stroud, it's not like he's even locking in on Collins. He's hitting Tank Dell for like 9 or 10 targets. He's hitting Robert Woods for 9 or 10 targets. He's hitting Dalton Schultz for 7 targets. I mean, he's spreading the ball out.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point there, to where it's going to be interesting to see how this offense continues, like you brought up, Josh, with the passing volume that we certainly didn't expect, because in recent years we've seen bad teams continue to run the ball even though they're a bad team. And I kind of expected that from Houston, and that's not what we've gotten, Josh.
Yeah, it's the Texans on offense have been very interesting, to say the least. And
who do they really have at running back?
Well, they have a good running back. And again, we'll get to that here shortly, because I have some things to say on Dameon Pierce. But again, you're breaking in a first-time play caller on offense. There's going to be hiccups. And with all the new moving pieces, John Mechie played last week for the first time, or yesterday for the first time. Super excited to see him get more involved in that offense. They're a work in progress, to say the least.
Yeah, very much so. And Josh, you had some honorable mentions as well.
Yeah, my honorable mentions, I'm going to make these quick because I shit on both these guys last week. Rachaad White, Drake London. I was more willing to give Rachaad White a chance this week because the Bears just flat out suck. Yeah. But Drake London, I was fully expecting to not do well against Jair Alexander, against what is a pretty decent Packers defense. Both of them showed up. White, 21.3 fantasy points. London, 18.7. The more important thing for White was they did actually get him incorporated in the passing game. 5 catches, 30 yards. That's what we need to see consistently from Rachaad White, because overall, as a runner, he's not going to get it done. But you like the rushing share right now, even though Sean Tucker did get, I believe it was 7 rushes. So he's slowly getting more involved, even if the volume itself was just kind of or the production, was kind of from Tucker. But I'll give props where props is due. Kudos to those guys.
Yeah, and I'll stick with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Josh left Mike Evans for me. Big Mike Evans guy, big Keenan Allen guy. So it was a good week for my favorite players. And it's always a good week when they're both in the top 3. Evans tied Chris Godwin for 8 targets. The concern is always, especially with subpar quarterback play, that you're going to see the possession guy just see all the targets and hope for the best. Well, Evans is still seeing the targets, and Baker doesn't mind slinging the ball. 6 catches for 171 yards and a touchdown. Maybe a push-off. I'm not too concerned about it. The refs didn't seem to have a big problem with it. He's a big play, and this team is going to need big plays this season because they're not going to be very good at running the football. Baker Mayfield is going to need to throw it downfield, and Mike Evans has clearly caught his eye. And Baker's throwing the balls we saw from Tom Brady 2 years ago that we didn't see from Tom Brady last year. And I think that's going to play really, really well in Mike Evans' favor. Kyren Williams, we're going to talk about later. I'm in. Josh isn't. That's a story for later. Brian Robinson. Seeing Brian Robinson play well is just, I think I tend to forgot what this kid overcame as a rookie. He was the RB1 last week. He's the RB3, last week being week 2. RB3 on the year. Touchdowns were the problem last year, and he already has 3 of those this season. And nothing gets my juices flowing better than being right. And my goodness, did my streams of the week go off this week. Jared Goff, QB8 with 29 6-point touchdown league points. Hunter Henry drops a touchdown in the second half. He is the tight end 2 on the week. And the Bucs defense 1 on the week. Crushed it with the stream of the week. Mark, was there anybody else who went off this week that just it makes you happy? Confirmation bias. Any reasons you're happy coming out of week 2?
Swift was a big one. I know that we've already covered that a little bit with Josh being an Eagles fan, but that was the one that was like, okay, I can finally feel good about putting him in the lineup again. I felt the same about Breece Hall last week, and that kind of backfired this week.
Yeah, didn't it? No, I think it's such a good point because we've said it. Mark, you probably said it on one of the shows or both the shows you had with us. DeAndre Swift is the most talented running back on Philadelphia. It's just, was he going to get this kind of opportunity? And it was really nice to see. Josh, does Kenneth Gainwell come back and get his role back immediately? Is it going to be more of a split role, or did DeAndre Swift put his stamp on this job?
I don't know that he put his stamp on this job. The one thing that I do know is that it's going to be a committee. Straight up. Like, they're going to ride the hot hand. I still believe that Gainwell got first crack because of what he did in the playoffs, that, he earned the role, so to speak. But him going down, like, I know there's this whole adage of like, you don't lose your job to injury. Gainwell never should have had the job to begin with. So I'm not really that opposed to it. Like, Swift came out, he did his thing, but Swift is like, what you love about Swift is his efficiency, right? Like if he can work in tandem with Gainwell, Swift can still get his. Gainwell can, have that sort of like occasional flex value given the matchup, but you want Swift because he's so dangerous with the football in his hands. He does it as a receiver. He does it as a runner. And what I found very comforting in that usage wasn't necessarily the 28 carries. It was them getting him involved in the passing game. If they're able to do that consistently this season, that is what's going to make this offense more dangerous. And it's what's going to make Swift a value this season because of where he was starting to slip to in fantasy draft as August went on.
And Rachaad Penny's just dead.
Basically, yeah. Okay. I would not be shocked if one of these teams that is really struggling at running back makes a phone call and they just ship him out. But they like Boston Scott. I love Boston Scott. I think he's a quality third guy. He's a good special teamer. But I don't think Penny's going to be happy being brought up and down from healthy and active and to being on the roster once a running back gets hurt kind of thing. Like he's a veteran. He wants to be able to play. So I think if it came down to him approaching the team like, hey, this and that, they would grant, whether it be a release or trade him to a situation where he could actually play.
Yeah, it should be very, very interesting. We call the next section the hangover. It's just the head scratchers of the week. I'm going to kind of blow through mine. Josh, you have probably the one we need to talk the most about. I almost was ready to put Trevor Lawrence in my getting ready to panic category, but I've decided just to call it the head scratcher. And my head scratch about this situation is it feels like we're just repeating 2022 all over again, where Trevor Lawrence is getting to learn Doug Peterson's system, maybe because Calvin Ridley's there. And you just feel like they don't have a handle on the offense quite yet. They looked very mediocre in week 1, and I would call it below average in week 2. Obviously, their defense kept them in that game. I don't feel great when ever an offense takes a step back, but especially an offense that I thought was going to take a huge step forward. Now their step forward is just going to be getting back to where they were last year. So that worries me. I'm not going to panic yet, but I am concerned. And then the other two that just bug me, why draft Devin Achane? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Devon Achane. At least pronounce his name right. Like,
first of all,
put some respect on that man's name.
One carry in a game where Salvon Ahmed got hurt and Jeff Wilson. So what is it? Devon Achane.
Correct.
I'll get it eventually. Devon Achane, 2 touches total, while Raheem Mostert gets 19 and Salvon Ahmed gets 6. It's a problem for me. I don't know why we're spending 3rd-round picks and then not using them. And then Mark.
Here's my only thing with Achane. Okay. He was going into this game more so as a kick returner and the 3rd running back. There was no real plan to play him, regardless of whether Ahmed goes down or not. Right. So when the moment he goes down, and we kind of saw this really with Swift and Philly, right? Like Boston Scott went down. They didn't just insert, Rachaad Penny for multiple carries. They just brought him in for a couple and just let Swift do his thing. It's the same thing with Raheem Mostert. Now, if Ahmed misses this game and they go into week 3 with just Mostert and Achane, you're going to see Achane more involved.
Gotcha. Mark, what was
that
your
would be the way that I would look at it?
Yeah, well, and Mark, what was your take on Achane coming out? Because obviously he's not a big guy at all. Had some nice, combine performances to get him up into the 3rd round of the draft. We thought he was really going to fix this Dolphins offense, not fix, but complement this Dolphins offense. And now they're just not even using him. Is he a guy who has future value, or is kick return and complementary roles what we can expect out of him?
At this point, I think it's going to be kick returning complementary roles. I was kind of hands off. He was going a little early for my taste in rookie drafts. I did take him up very late in a couple of redrafts, but even then I'm looking at dropping him for Williams if he's still around, or Puka if he's still around, stuff like that. Things that are other young players that are showing upside.
You actually brought up a great point that I'm going to bring up here in a second. I want to see how many leagues Puka didn't get picked up in last week. How many people just did not believe in him whatsoever. So I'm going to look at that in a second. But my next thing I wanted to bring up, Mark, and you being in Vegas right now, you can maybe explain this a little bit better. When I was doing my weekly rankings, saw the wonderful week that Jacoby Myers had for the Raiders last week, and then he gets the concussion. And then Jacoby Myers is out. And I'm like, oh shit, we're finally going to see Hunter Renfrow play football again. Josh McDaniels can't hate him that much. 1 target. 1 target. Now, to be fair, nobody outside of Davante Adams at the wide receiver role saw more than 1 target. But what happened with Hunter Renfrow that he was so good in 2021, I think it was. So good. And now he gets 1 target in a week where he is replacing a guy who saw 10 targets the week.
Going from Carr to Garoppolo. I mean,
okay.
He had the trust in, Carr had faith in him. Garoppolo doesn't. That's the best I can really give you.
Okay. No, that's interesting because I think I focus more on the role than the quarterback. And then I guess that's also with Garoppolo and Jacoby Myers. Well, I guess, did they ever play together? Myers and Garoppolo in New England?
That I'm not sure.
Okay. So yeah, maybe it's not a comfortability issue between those two necessarily, but just
certainly knowledge of the offense.
Yeah, certainly. Well, there's definitely that. But yeah, the Hunter Renfrow thing just puzzles me greatly. Josh, go ahead and go in and your middle one here, if you want to move it to the end. That one's going to need some time.
Yeah, we'll definitely touch on that one. Yeah. But no, like for me, this is all right. Well, let's just start with Zach Taylor, because the head coach of the Bengals, who's also their play caller, why are you not targeting Ja'Marr Chase down the field? Through 2 weeks, he has 10 catches for 70 yards.
Rough.
His rookie season, he averaged 18 yards per reception. He currently averages 7. What are we doing? Like, we saw the dip last year in the production of the targeting them downfield. And you know what? Hats off. T. Higgins did his thing. Maybe it was just the coverage thing that, Baltimore said, look, we're going to take Ja'Marr Chase out of this game. But this is back-to-back weeks, and this is becoming a trend through now going into the second season. They're looking at Chase as more of a possession-type receiver. He's one of the most explosive wide receivers in the NFL. Yeah. Take the fucking leash off. What are we doing? Like, it's like taking a wild animal and putting them in a zoo after they've been in frickin' Africa running around fields in the desert for, decades. Like, what are we doing? This is ridiculous.
Or if you're treating him like the possession guy, treat him like Mike Evans. Feed him the ball.
Yeah.
This is coaching malpractice. And we preach this all the time. Offensive coordinators, play callers, they're fucking stupid. They get in their own way. This is Zach Taylor. He's getting in his own way, and I'm fucking over it because Ja'Marr Chase is a baller, and I'm only partly bitter because I had him as my overall wide receiver 1 heading into the season. Which one did you want to talk about, Ryan?
I'm going to pause you for a second because I want Mark to jump in here. So Josh sounds mildly worried about the play calling in Cincinnati. I sound mildly worried about the play calling in Jacksonville. Mark, are you worried about either of these two teams, or are both these offenses going to bounce back as the season moves forward?
Once Burrow's healthy, I'm sure the Bengals will bounce back. Having Calvin Ridley as the centerpiece of the Jags offense is not something I can really – I don't get it. I mean, he was good in Atlanta, 2 years away from the league. He's another old rookie. He's 29 this year.
Yeah.
I don't see why people are putting so much stock, especially in Dynasty, as to throwing first, trying to acquire this guy. It's like,
you've actually just put into words a tweet I forgot to send out, honestly. The Dynasty community hated Calvin Ridley because he was an old rookie. And now all of a sudden I feel like the Dynasty community fucking loves Calvin Ridley. And I'm like, it's
the Dynasty community that likes to win now. Those are the ones that are resounding, that are pumping the noise.
But no, I want to bring George's question up here because Mark hit on the centering your offense around Calvin Ridley, and last year it was centered around Christian Kirk. So George wants to know what is he doing with guys like Skyy Moore, Christian Kirk, Drake London, and I'm going to throw Romeo Doubs in here as well because literally these are his flex options, and he wants to know, should he package some of this together to try to get a better option at flex? I'm going to answer first that I like your combination of Christian Kirk and Drake London. I think Christian Kirk's going to be fine moving forward volume wise. And then Drake London maybe has a touchdown upside that we didn't see. You want to see that for a couple more weeks. I'm not ready to move off of Kirk and London yet. Skyy Moore and Dobbs, if you can get something, it might be interesting to go to the guy who has Christian Watson, see if he's willing to take Skyy Moore and Dobbs just because they've been playing. That's my take on this, but I'm not ready to move off of Kirk in London yet. Mark?
I think in the Kirk in London, I'm not a big Romeo guy, and Skyy Moore really hadn't shown me anything, even when he got pushed into being an early round pick by being drafted by the Chiefs.
Yeah, man. I'm probably to blame for Skyy Moore and Rashee Rice because I am the leader of the Chiefs drafted him early. You better get him trained. And man, do I look like an idiot every single
I fell victim to that with CEH too. So I
okay. Yeah, the world fell victim to that. Our good buddy Joe Zolo traded up to get the number 1 pick and took H over Jonathan Taylor. So.
No, Joe took.
Was it the other way around? It was someone else then.
Somebody else traded.
That's what it was.
For one and took CEH
and let Joe get Jonathan Taylor. Okay, yeah. Man, Joe
would well for him this year.
Thank God Joe is not on the show right now because he would never let me live that mistake down. All right, Josh, what's your take on this?
I was a little worried about Kirk last week. He, torched Kansas City last year, so I'm not overly surprised that. He had a good bounce back this week, but it all boils down to game flow, right? Like if they're trailing, they're going to be running a lot more 3 wide. That's going to benefit Christian Kirk. I haven't dug too far into the numbers yet for like personnel usage, how many routes he ran versus plays and things of that nature. But I feel like he's kind of the new Tyler Boyd at this point, right? Like if they're going to run a lot of 11 personnel, he's going to be involved and he's going to have an opportunity because he has that rapport with Trevor Lawrence. But if they're winning, they're going to be running a lot more 12 personnel, utilizing Evan Ingram more, utilizing the running backs more. I mean, Travis Etienne had a down game, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's correlation there. So you kind of have to look at the personnel groupings when it comes to that. Drake London, I thought it was going to be matchup based, but apparently, Jair Alexander only shows up when he wants to. So with Skyy Moore, I think that the Chiefs are really just kind of using the time between now and their bye week to kind of figure out what they have at wide receiver, who can work. But when you look at some of the numbers, and these I have dug into, Kadarius Toney leads the wide receiver group in targets and has run arguably the fewest number of routes. So I really don't know what to make of this with Skyy Moore, but Andy Reid is one of the best play callers at scheming players to get the football. Like if you're in for a particular personnel grouping package and that is your play, you're going to get the ball, and whether you're open or not.
I think having a quarterback like Mahomes who understands
it makes it so much easier for that. Correct. So I'm not overreacting yet to this with Skyy Moore. Maybe he does end up being the better of the wide receivers in this grouping. I know a lot of people were on Rashee Rice going into this week. Didn't really do much. Kadarius Toney, like I said, the targets are there. The production just hasn't been. But I also know he's kind of working himself back from a preseason injury. So there's a lot still to work out with Kansas City, and I think it's just going to take some time. So for me, I'm leaving him on the bench because right now, I can't trust Kansas City. It's not that I can't trust Skyy Moore. I can't trust the situation right now. So there's going to be some blowout weeks. It's probably going to end up on my bench. So be it.
Who are you flexing right now? Oh, go ahead. No, Mark, go ahead.
Are the Packers defense really that good, or are the Bears just that bad to make them look that good?
Yeah, that definitely is interesting. So of that group, London, Kirk, Skyy Moore, and Romeo Dobbs, who are you flexing? And you can throw Isaiah Pacheco in here. Josh.
Right now, it's between Pacheco and Dobbs. Dobbs saw a lot more of the coverage. So, and again, he was kind of on that limited snap count. They're still kind of working him back from that hamstring injury. Things might get a little dicier for Dobbs. So this is kind of like a 1 or 2 week kind of thing once Christian Watson comes back, how they continue to utilize Jaden Reed. But and again, it's going to make life easier for Dobbs once Watson comes back, right? Because he's the guy that takes the top off the defense. So Watson's going to demand more of the attention, which opens things up for Dobbs. This week, Dobbs drew a lot of the attention, which opened up things for Jaden Reed. So that's where I'm kind of playing it ear by ear, and really you're just going to have to play the matchup. Like this isn't a set it and forget it kind of flex move.
I agree completely. I was going to say, I'm not ready to give London his flowers yet. So for me, it's Christian Kirk or Dobbs, and I would probably lean Kirk. Mark?
I'd lean London just because he's the obvious number one in that situation.
That's a good point.
I am stepping off the Pitts bandwagon.
No, I think that's a really, really good point. So three different answers. I like to call that the Club Fantasy Special, where we didn't really help you. I guess just choose which one of us you trust the most. And Josh, I think it's time. I know you have another one too that you want to talk about, someone only getting 4 touches, but the crowd is ready for us to talk about the Chicago Bears. Caesar says Justin Fields. Gemmo says the Bears are the worst 0-2 team of every 0-2 team. So Josh, you have the Bears as a head scratcher here, and Mark also a Bears fan.
They really are. Like I can't stress this enough, and I will continue to sound like a broken record. Offensive coordinators and play callers in the NFL, outside of maybe Sean McVay and Andy Reid, are really fucking stupid. They trust themselves more than they trust their personnel, and they refuse to adjust the game plans. That's what got Brock Purdy hurt in the NFC Championship game last year, because Kyle Shanahan trusted his system more and left a blocking tight end to cover Hassan Reddick. That is what is going on right now in Chicago with Justin Fields and this offense. Luke Getsy is trying to put the square peg of Justin Fields into a round hole that is his offense. He has 4 designed runs through 2 games. This is a man that rushed for over 1,000 yards last year. Look, I don't love when a quarterback rushes that much because it usually means that they suck as a passer. I know that there is a lot of growth still to be done for Justin Fields as a quarterback. They made a concerted effort to get DJ Moore involved in this game. 6 catches, over 100 yards pass or receiving. That's what you want from a number 1 wide receiver. But there were plays where DJ Moore was wide open and Justin Fields wasn't even looking at him. DJ Moore needs to be the first read on 90% of the play calls.
Yeah.
Because he is the best playmaker that offense has. I do not understand what this offense is trying to accomplish. They're a team with a quarterback that can run the football, and the rushing offense as a whole is terrible. Terrible.
Yeah.
This is mind-boggling to me. And if they can't figure this shit out, Eberflus is going to lose his job, and Getsy's going to lose his job.
Getsy will go first, for sure.
Pace is not going to have it because they passed up the number 1 overall pick to ride with Fields because he trusted this coaching staff to develop him. This coaching staff is not developing Fields.
Which brings me to the question I wanted to ask about this. And we talked about this pregame, and I thought it was too good not to bring it on the show. We joked about this a little bit in the offseason. I don't think we actually thought it could come to fruition. Mark, we talked about this where if the Bears are bad and the Panthers are bad, the Bears could potentially have the first 2 picks of the 2024 NFL draft. Mark, if that's the situation that happens, they're moving on from Justin Fields, right? Like no matter what Fields does the rest of this season, if they have both of those picks, Fields' time is over. Caleb Williams is in, right?
I would hope so, but knowing the Bears, they take a middle linebacker and a defensive end. I don't have faith in this team, really. It's my team, and I don't have faith that they're ever going to have an offense. They're going to try and run the ball and play defense, and they're not even running the ball very well right now.
Josh, is there a situation where Fields, this is going to sound so fucking stupid, where Fields does enough, but the Bears still suck, where you're comfortable keeping Fields as that quarterback, or if they have the one, it's Caleb Williams?
If he's doing just enough to get them the 3rd overall pick, that's not improvement. They were the worst fucking team last year. So you're asking yourself, okay, this guy is good enough, right? But he's not, because a good quarterback is going to help you win games. I don't care what the situation is at this point. He's not helping them win games. You're doing your fans, the city, the team a disservice if they end up in the top 3 picks of this draft class, top 2 picks in this draft class, whatever it may be, and you still ride with Justin Fields. You can't conceivably do that. You just can't.
And I'm not crying about the Bears. Something is in my eye. It's driving me nuts. Look, I'm crying about
You sure, Ryan? I think
Yeah.
you're a little upset by that.
I missed this one earlier. Remington, when you were going in on the poor usage of Jamar Chase, said Cincinnati native there. He wants to see it too. He wants to see Jamar Chase set free. Caesar, you just missed us answering this question. Our take is Gainwell and Swift still continue to split, but it probably plays very well for DeAndre Swift because it's going to allow him to use his efficiency. And if you've never followed Club Fantasy before, we also expect Boston Scott to score 4 touchdowns against the New York Giants.
At least
year.
2. At least 2. At least 2, but 4 is always the goal.
Exactly. And Rachaad Penny is dead. That was a
Yes.
quote from earlier in the show. Josh, I'm guessing this is going to be a friend.
Yeah.
Zach Ritchie says Baker's the future. Tampa Bay
Yeah.
can use.
Oh goodness! Don't worry, Richie. We'll see what happens next Monday.
Hey,
Eagles win.
As someone who, a buddy of mine yesterday. So when Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry both ended up on the Browns, I went hard on Baker Mayfield being the truth, and a friend of mine has never let me live that down. After yesterday, he was like, maybe Ryan was just a few years early on Baker Mayfield. So. We're going to see the Baker Mayfield resurgence. And Josh, I don't want to skip any of the things that you did a little research on here. Breece Hall, 4 touches. Also,
Yeah, I'm going to make this one quick. What the actual fuck? Like, I understand that this offense struggled. They were playing from behind. Guess what? Breece Hall knows how to catch the football too. Scheme him to get the damn football. 4 touches, egregious. Next.
We're going to move on to the migraine. This is the underwhelming performance that is a prelude of things to come. These are players who played bad, who are going to be bad. Mine are going to be easy. I'll save those for the end. Josh, I'm going to let you keep going.
All right, we'll start with Dameon Pierce. I touched on this. They did everything right to rebuild this line. They invested, they extended people. Everything was set in stone. It is week 2. 4 of the 5 are on IR or out, one or the other.
Yeah.
This is not good news for Dameon Pierce. But here's one of my favorite stats from this past weekend's games. Okay. Dameon Pierce had 38 yards after first contact. He finished with 31 total rushing yards.
Oops.
Like, that is how bad this offensive line and how bad the production is. But it shows you how good Dameon Pierce is when running the football. He can break tackles, but he's human. He can only do so much. I am worried, not because I don't believe in Dameon Pierce. It's the situation that he is in currently that is stressing me out because I want to believe in Dameon Pierce. I am heavily invested in Dameon Pierce in redraft leagues. Heavily invested. But I don't think this is going to get much better. Over the next 4 weeks, he's at Jacksonville, home to Pittsburgh, at Atlanta, home to New Orleans. Those are all offenses, maybe outside of Pittsburgh, that can put up points. And some of them actually play good defense.
Yeah.
So you may end up having a lot of negative game scripts. And right now, they're not targeting Dameon Pierce in the passing game. They're not targeting the running backs at all in the passing game. Yeah. And you can make a case that they have 4 pretty good wide receivers and even a really good tight end they're not even throwing the football to.
Yeah.
So tough sledding ahead for Dameon Pierce. I'm okay if you want to maybe throw out some feelers to like try to, buy him for cheap and just kind of stash him, because I think in the middle of the season is where we might be able to see him sort of like kickstart a little bit, because the offensive line will hopefully get a little healthier. CJ Stroud will kind of have like a little bit more comfortability in that offense, and we'll kind of get a feeling for where the identity of this offense continues to grow.
Mark, I was going to actually, Josh touched on it a little bit. Is Dameon Pierce a buy for you or a sell? Because I'm actually pretty invested in him in Dynasty right now, thinking he was going to be the centerpiece of that offense, and I'm looking kind of silly right now.
I am heavily in the sell camp on that one. I was not expecting a whole lot from him in the first place.
Yeah, what's interesting is if you go back and look at his game splits from last year, he did the majority of his damage in like 4 games. And so you're hoping for something consistency over the season that we haven't really seen from him at all yet. Josh, go ahead and keep going.
Yeah, the next one for me in this segment, it's Brandon Staley. Why is this guy so fucking?
I think you were hoping Joe was actually going to do the show with us this week, so this would have just.
Yeah, I mean, if that was the case, I would have left it for him to bitch about, because he's definitely a lot more passionate on this. Like, I get they didn't have Austin Eckler. Like, people are asking all weekend, should I start Josh Kelly? Should I start Josh Kelly? Whatever. Like, it wasn't going to be a good game for Josh Kelly. You were just hoping that some of that pass volume that went Eckler's way, at least half of it would find Josh Kelly. And they said, nah, we're okay. We're good. Because he wasn't going to run into Jeffrey Simmons. It just wasn't going to happen. So 3.9 fantasy points. If you started him, I ended up having to in a couple leagues. You get what you paid for at that point. But you lose to Ryan fucking Tannehill in overtime. What are you doing? The play calling for a guy that is supposed to be a defensive head coach. The 5 sacks, the 8 tackles for loss, fantastic. 0 turnovers. 0. There's playmakers all across this defense. They went and said, we have to fix the running game. They held Derrick Henry to like less than 4 yards per carry. That is a win. You want that. And it still didn't fucking matter. What's the issue there? It's coaching. Move on from this guy, because his bad coaching decisions is making Justin Herbert second guess a lot of his decisions. And you didn't pay Justin Herbert the second most money you've ever paid a quarterback in NFL history to second guess himself.
Yeah.
Give that man confidence that he can make the plays that he needs to make, because the offense is full of playmakers. That defense is full of playmakers. It's bad coaching. Get rid of Brandon Staley, because God, he's terrible.
Nick Folk looking like the investment of the century for the Tennessee Titans right now.
I'm
going to pick on 2 very inefficient running backs, one of which I've been hammering for a while now. Alexander Mattison, it's not going to get better. In 2021 as a backup, he had 3.7 yards per carry. In 2022, 3.8 yards per carry. Efficiency goes down when you see more volume. 3.3 yards per carry this season. And you can look at his targets and be like, well, at least he's being targeted. Those don't help when you're only averaging 3.3 yards per catch as well. That's very, very low and terrible.
Here's the only solace, the only point for pushback I will give on that. Look at the run defense he has played for season. The Bucks and the Eagles are both legit run defense.
That's fair.
I think somewhat better days are ahead for Alexander Mattison, but I do agree it will be a struggle bus season for him and firmly within the dead zone of running backs.
Yeah. And then AJ Dillon, when you drafted AJ Dillon, you were like, man, Aaron Jones is going to get hurt one week, and if I'm really lucky, it's going to be like when they get to play the Falcons. Well, that happened, and you got 15 carries for 55 yards, and he's only averaging 2.6 yards per carry on the season. He is 100% a backup in the NFL right now. And Mark, you hit on this point a little earlier. Maybe there are leagues where Puka Nacua are still out there. There are. 24% of leagues did not add Puka Nacua after week 1. If you need a roster spot, drop AJ fucking Dillon. I am not worried about putting AJ Dillon out there for the world if it means bringing in Puka Nacua. Mark, I already saw you shake your head, but that was the question I was going to ask you from a redraft standpoint. Are you fine with dropping AJ Dillon right now?
Yes, I'm fine with dropping AJ Dillon. I'm fine with dropping Khalil Herbert. I mean, Roschon Johnson showing something, but I'm not even sure I want to pick him up.
Hold on now, Mark, because you just did you bring a tear to this host's eye. You're segueing perfectly into a user question. George wants to know, is Roschon Johnson going to take over the backfield? You said you're not too sure about picking him up either.
The Bears are just so bad. I can't. I mean, aside from DJ Moore, who do you really want on this team?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. And I think the passing work is what's interesting, and he's found the end zone. So I think it's going to be an interesting way of moving forward. But yeah, those are guys who I think are both drop candidates. All right, guys, we're running long. This show's going to run a little past noon. If you need to go, let us know. But the segment that everybody tunes in for, I think, is chill the fuck out, because you need to decide whether it's time to panic on a player or whether it's time to chill out. And Josh, we actually have a disagreement this week before we get into our base players that will tell you why we think you should chill out on them. We disagree on one Kyren Williams, where you think this is not what we can expect for the rest of the season. And while I agree with you to a point, I would not tell people to chill out. I'll let you go first because that's the segment.
I mean, I'm going to look at it this way. Yes, he's currently the RB2 on the season. Cam Akers being inactive on the trade block, yada, yada, yada. This is all hyped up by the fact that he scored 4 touchdowns in 2 weeks. If you think that level of production is going to continue, I want a prescription of what you're smoking. He's averaging 3.6 yards per carry. And what makes this so less believable for me, he was in the 31st percentile in 40-yard dash, 10th percentile in speed score, 21st burst score, 51st agility score. This guy is the definition of below average athlete. This is situationally based. If he's not scoring touchdowns, this is not going to work for him at all. And I can't imagine a world where a 5'9", 195-pound running back is going to consistently see enough volume over the course of a year to sustain top 5, top 10, top 15 production at the running back position in what will be a pass-first offense once Cooper Kupp comes back into the fold.
It actually turns out we don't disagree as much as I thought we disagreed. My caveat is go get Kyren Williams. Just don't pay RB.
Well, yes, 100% get Kyren Williams if he's on waivers. I'm not trading for him.
No. I would trade for him. I just don't know. First of all, are we this same song and dance with Cam Akers? He has to go this time.
He's done. He's done.
So 29 carries in 2 games, paces for over 200 carries on the season. Last year, only 2 running backs finished worse than RB30 with over 200 carries, and neither of them scored more than 5 touchdowns or had more than 15 targets. Williams is at 4 touchdowns and 12 targets already. Josh, when Kyren Williams came into the league, we kind of looked at him as a passing down back, so I don't think his targets are just going to disappear when Cooper Kupp comes in. But one thing you did say that I found interesting is without these 4 touchdowns, you don't want him. He's still the RB21 without those 4 touchdowns with 21 fantasy points in PPR.
It's 2 fucking weeks. 2 weeks. Jonathan Taylor hasn't played a fucking down this year.
If you're looking for an RB2, Kyren Williams is the guy you should be looking at. The problem is you're not going to be able to pay RB2 prices right now. So I don't think he's going to fall off the face of the earth. And Josh, it doesn't sound like you do either. But no, I will agree.
He's not fall off the face of the earth, but like this isn't the type of production that you can feel comfortable starting week in and week. He's still a
week in and week out. I mean,
he's still a matchup play.
Do you feel like? See, I don't think he's a matchup play. I think you play him every week. I just think there's going to be top 10.
Here's a scenario for you. Cooper Kupp comes back. You have Cooper Kupp. You have Tyler Higbee, who have proven to be target hogs for Matt Stafford in a Rams offense.
Okay.
Puka Nacua has set the world on fire. Tutu Atwell has been insanely productive. Unless they're throwing the football 750 times, you're trying to tell me that 5 guys are going to be viable in this passing attack?
Kyren Williams gets it in the ground too, though. He's going to have 15 carries. If you're telling me he's a 20-touch back, which I think
this is the same fucking argument we've been having about Rachaad White and James Conner. It doesn't matter what the volume is if he's only getting 3.5 yards a carry.
But we didn't see touchdowns from those guys. We've seen 4 from Kyren Williams already. You're making out like he's not going to score another touchdown the rest of the season.
I mean, he might have 3 more. Like,
telling you, I would not write this kid off. Mark, we didn't know if we were going to have you in for this segment. So before we go into our other guys for Chill the Fuck Out, I want to give you a chance, since me and Josh spent the last 10 minutes just fighting. Do you have any guys where you thought it was a really bad week that's not something that's going to continue, or a guy who had a really good week and you don't think it's someone who's going to continue?
I have to believe Breece Hall is going to get more than 4 touches going forward. And as for a good week, I was not planning on being on for the entire show, so I didn't get proper prep done for the entire show.
Exactly. I don't want to put you on the spot. That's absolutely fine. Don't worry. Me and Josh have plenty to talk about, but we're running over already anyway. So, Josh, finish up with your Chill the Fuck Out.
Yeah, it's AJ Brown's the other one for me. I mean, he had a touchdown called back because Rachaad blew the block. Like, you have to believe in Devonta Smith. He is the real deal. They've been hyping him up all offseason. People have talked about this guy could end this season being talked about as one of, if not the best wide receivers in the NFL. Devonta Smith is that good at football. I had a conversation with a buddy in the offseason. Having AJ Brown and Devonta Smith on the same team, if you want to look at historical comps, it's basically like having Marvin Harrison playing opposite Terrell Owens. They play very similar styles. You're going to have weeks where both of these guys pop. You're going to have some weeks where only one pops. And then you're going to have some weeks where it's all DeAndre Swift and all Dallas Goedert. That is conceivably possible. There are so many playmakers on this offense, and Philly has made it a point that, you know what, we're going to take what the defense gives us. They played a lot of cover zero, which again, they get the wide receiver over the top, but it left so much of the middle of the field wide open that DeAndre Swift could just pound the rock. Minnesota could not stop the run. So why are they going to throw the pass? Run the football. That's what Philadelphia is very good at, is taking what the defense gives you.
Yeah. Plus Devonta Smith, I'll never get over. Slim Reaper to me is just the best nickname ever.
Facts.
And I'm a big nickname guy. For me, it's Brandon Aiyuk, and people probably aren't fully panicking on Aiyuk yet, but when you see the big week and then into the slow week, I think people get a little nervous. He still saw 6 targets. He got hurt early, but came back into the game. And the catches he is making are the most ridiculous contested catches, maybe in the NFL this season. It's been filthy. If they're selling in your league, buy Brandon Aiyuk. And Javonte Williams, I just like to remind people, it was always going to be a timeshare early on, but he is dominating the carries. He is seeding passing work right now, and I still think he's probably the best pass catching back on this team. We could see that work grow and see Javonte Williams get better as the season goes on. So calm down on Javonte Williams. I'm not overly worried about him or Brandon Aiyuk. Before we get into Mark's waivers, I'm going to get a couple of listener questions on. This one's for tonight. Phil wants to know if he's playing Allen Robinson or Rashid Shaheed. Allen Robinson is at home against Pittsburgh, and I don't remember who's at home in the Carolina game.
I believe that's Carolina.
Okay. Yeah, so they are. And so then Rashid Shaheed in Carolina. Mark, who you got here? Allen Robinson, Rashid Shaheed.
I lean Allen Robinson as he was one of my waiver pickups for last week.
Yeah, and so is Puka Nacua. He knows what he's talking about, folks. Josh?
Give me the big play of Rashid Shaheed. JC Horn is on IR. They have nobody in that Carolina secondary. So give me all the big plays from Rashid Shaheed this week.
I'm nervous we're going to see less 11 personnel out of the Panthers, out of the Saints against the Panthers. So I'm going to agree with Mark here. I'm going to say go Allen Robinson. I will say if this is full PPR Allen Robinson, if it's standard somehow, Rashid Shaheed is probably the better play in that situation. And then Demo wants to know, should he trade Dameon Pierce for Jahmyr Gibbs? And I don't think we need to talk too much about this as quickly as you possibly can. We spent a segment giving Dameon Pierce the business earlier in the show, and I do think it is an easy upgrade to go out and get Jahmyr Gibbs. Josh, you were shaking your head. Yes. Mark is shaking
100%.
his head. Yes. So, guys, we are going to end the show with Mark's deep waivers. These are players that are typically available in 90% or more leagues. Great for Dynasty. Great for redraft. Mark is at Drunken Dynasty on Twitter. Make sure you're following him. Mark, go ahead.
This week is heavily more on the redraft side, as most of these guys are going to be taken in dynasties. CJ Stroud is only rostered in about 7% of leagues. He is peppering his targets. I actually got 2 of the targets on the list otherwise. I like both him and Tank Dell this week. Tank Dell is only rostered in less than 4% of leagues. Josh Reynolds is still showing up. He was on my list last week. 2 TDs this week. Probably continues to keep a slot for a while.
Yeah, I want to throw
at
in
least until Jameson Williams comes back. Yeah.
And then Joe Zolo last week on the show brought up something that I had never really connected. Goff and Reynolds go back to their days together with the Rams. There is a connection there where Josh Reynolds is not going to go anywhere in this offense.
Marvin Mims was a mid-second in rookie drafts. He's only rostered in 7% of the ESPN leagues. Caught a couple big bombs. Maybe that's enough because both Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton are pretty disappointing this year.
He only ran 5 routes, though. That's the concerning part with Mims.
Yep. But if he catches 2 touchdowns on those 5 routes, you're going to be really happy.
He made plays. He's going to get some attention. We'll see what happens. Similar to Robinson last week, I got an old guy, Robert Woods. Again, 9 targets, 6 catches, 74 yards. Again, if you're desperate and don't trust any of these young kids to do it, give them a look.
I love that you called it the old guy corner, and I want you to keep that going for weeks because as an old guy, that just warms my heart to have an old guy corner for our waivers. What a wonderful, wonderful addition. Before we give our predictions for the Monday night game, Matt would like us to make a prediction. He is up 30 going against Rashid Shaheed, Jawan Johnson, and the Browns defense. What are his chances? Up 30 I think you're looking pretty good. The Browns defense might be your biggest worry here.
I was going to say, to me, it really depends on what your scoring is for defenses. Like if it's amplified like it can be in some leagues, you might be in a little bit more trouble. If it's more typically standard defensive scoring,
yeah,
I think, against this really shoddy Pittsburgh offense, you could be looking at anywhere from 8 to 15 points just off of that. Rachaad Shaheed being the big play guy that he is very boom or bust. You could see a game like you had in week 1. You could also see 4 points. He's basically
you're seeing
the new Gabe
2 or
Davis
15.
Yeah, basically. So I'd say probably 50-50. That's kind of what I would put it
I'd
at.
give you better than 50-50. I'll give you 80-20. Mark, what do you think?
I'd fall somewhere in the middle of that. I do agree that the big chance is going to be if the Steelers lay an egg on national TV.
Gemmo is down 15 points and has Jamal Williams. Gemmo, I hate to jinx you, but Jamal Williams was my 2-tutty special on the Wednesday show this week, which has notoriously been a jinx in fantasy football. But I'm predicting 2 touchdowns for Jamal Williams, so you got that win, baby. Let's do it. Josh?
Dig it. Yeah, I think Jamal Williams can very easily get 15.
Mark, I heard you.
I'll pass on that
I was
one.
just going to say, Mark,
I will say with Kendre Miller supposedly coming back this week, it might make things very interesting.
Yeah.
But, if they keep Jamal Williams in his role as like the early down guy and maybe use Kendre in more of that passing role, you're ultimately relying on touchdowns with Jamal Williams. So, Brian, if you're right with the 2 touchdown special, this is an easy one for me.
Man, I would love to be right for Gemmo more than anything in this whole
Right.
world. And I don't see how you could have possibly got fleeced if you got Barkley and the 49ers defense Wombat. So no, you won great. I'm not even going to kick that one to my co-host. You won by a lot, unless you're forgetting a piece of this.
Even if Barkley misses 2 weeks, that's a win for you.
Yeah, that's a very big win. Speaking of Miles Sanders, the New Orleans Saints travel to Carolina. The over-under on this game is 39.5. The Saints are favorite by 3. I think the Saints win and cover the spread, and I think it hits the under. As far as the prediction for the game itself, I predict Jamal Williams scores 2 touchdowns. Josh?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Saints in this one. I think under is probably the best bet, and I think the Saints should very easily cover 3 points.
Josh? All right, Mark? Sorry.
I'm guessing you should probably bet the opposite because I'm going to agree with my co-host.
Oh, man. Yeah, 3 for 3 is never good. And then Cleveland travels to Pittsburgh, division rivalry. Over-under in this one all the way down at 38. Cleveland is 2.5-point favorites. I think this is going to be a very, very slow Nick Chubb sort of game. I know we were hoping for a good Elijah Moore game earlier in the show, but I'm not quite sure we're going to get it. I don't think Pittsburgh's going to be able to get a lot going. I'm calling Cleveland the under again, and I think it's going to be a big game for Nick Chubb in fantasy. Mark?
With Amari Cooper questionable, I'm leaning definitely a Chubb game. So, under in Cleveland seems like the winner.
Josh?
I'm going to take the under on the 38, but I'm going to take Pitt to cover the spread.
Ooh. Nice close game.
Hey, 20-1 in their last 21 Monday night appearances.
Yeah, you found that
home.
insane stat.
Dude, that's – even if they lose, they're covering the spread.
Yeah, that's a really good
I can't imagine Kenny Pickett is going to look that bad again.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been wrong on that one before, but –
Exactly. All right, Josh, take us home. Let them know what they can find on Club Fantasy.
Oh, so many shows. So many shows. We'll be back Wednesday night at 7 for No Punt Intended. Thursday morning, we'll have the latest episode of Don't Get Too Cute with Zach and his daughter Mattison dropping at 9 a.m. Eastern on Thursday. Then we've got the Sneaky Girls and Kelly Singh on the Sneaky Flex at 7:15 p.m. It's the best 15 minutes of the internet you will have. That's Thursday night. Friday morning, the week 3 episode of DFS Academy will drop at 9 a.m. Saturday starts at different day. Faith and Joe should be back. We're still working on some guests, but Faith and I had a talk about who we could possibly look to get for Saturday morning. So it should be fun there. Articles this week. Ryan, you'll have your pick 'em up tomorrow. DFS report on Wednesday. The A-list with Austin. Hopefully we'll have a Dynasty playlist article from Joel this week. I know he's been a little dealing with some medical stuff, so get well soon. And actually Sunday night we'll have the next episode of Dynasty After Party, because we're doing that every 2 weeks now. So and then we'll have Roxanne's wide receiver matchups and talking props.
Yeah. our little group roundtable article. 4 of 5 last week. Only one who let us down, Jamar Chase. Not his fault. Definitely the coach's fault. Folks, if you didn't pick up what Josh is saying there, the long and short is make sure you're following us on all the socials at Club Fantasy FFL. You can find our website at clubfantasyffl.com. But more importantly, hit that subscribe button on Twitter. You're never going to miss when we go live. It's quite often. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it means the world to us. This show will be back next Monday and help you decide when it is time to panic and when it is time to chill the fuck out.